Notice the default value for limit is 10. The minimum value that can be passed is 1. What if I enter 0? If I then make a request, FastAPI will give a clear error message that this input doesn't pass the FastAPI's validation checks. In this video, we will see how we can make these types of validation checks. So let's start. Data validation in FastAPI is ridiculously powerful. Let's imagine that we have an endpoint nodes, and when we access it, we get a collection of nodes that we have in our database. While we implement the functionality of this in FastAPI, you will get to know how powerful FastAPI's data validation is and how readable it can really make your code. So let's move on to the VS Code. We have set up a basic FastAPI app, and now let's create an endpoint get nodes, and here we will add two query parameters, label and limit, and this is going to be a very simple endpoint that will return the node that are in the database. And now let's say if I ask you a question, what is the type of label? Is it a string? Is it a collection of strings? What is it? It's difficult to tell by the name, even though you have some hint that maybe it's a string. Who knows? Maybe it's a list of strings. Python, with the help of typing, allows us to specify types, something like this. Now it's very clear that label is a string and limit is integer. We can even have more complex types. For example, we can tell that label can be a string or it can pass a none. But what happens if the user doesn't pass this value? In that case, you would want to pass something like a default value. FastAPI allows you to do that, the default value of parameters. So now if nothing is passed for the label by the user, it will default to none. It may be that there are many labels that a user passes. It may be that one node has a lot of labels on it. In that case, we can make the type of label to be a list of a string. Now it may be that you would want to be more granular in your approach, and let's say you would want to ensure that labels follow a particular pattern. For example, labels should be at least 1 character long and at most 50 characters. So what you can do is use annotated class from typing. What it allows you to do is specify these types of conditions. For example, let's wrap this in annotated, and now we specify that it's a query parameter, and inside of this we can provide all of the specific validation. For example, min length and max length should be 50 characters, and it should follow a pattern that the first letter of every label should be a capital letter. We can do similar things for limit, which is an integer. We can wrap this in an annotated, tell that it's a query parameter, and inside of that we can give these types of validation checks that limit should be less than or equal to 100 and greater than or equal to 1. And FastAPI will ensure these conditions are met when these variables are accessible in this particular function. So FastAPI does all of the work validating that it's the right type and it is in these limits. That's pretty much it for this video. See you soon.